Hello BookTube. Today the long list for the Cundill History Prize was announced. The Cundill History Prize is a prize that recognizes excellence in history writing. There are 3 rounds. After the nomination submissions process, long list is announced. Last year it was announced towards the end of August. This year, fortunately, it's been announced at the beginning of August, so there's a lot longer period to read the long list before the short list is announced on the 27th. So the short list basically halves the long list. And then about a month and change later, I think at the beginning of November, that shortlist is further whittled down to 3 finalists, each of which gets a cash prize. I've fallen in love with the Cundill Prize. I have read a number of works on the shortlist and finalists and winners, and I've loved them immensely. And I enjoyed following along with the prize last year. So I'm looking forward to following along this year and see what new books, new authors strike my fancy. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run off the long list, read the description off of Amazon, and add those works to my wish list if I haven't already. So far I know there are 2 that I've wanted for sure that I wanted before the long list was announced. So I think they're already in my Amazon wish list, but I'll add the others as well and also bump those up so that way all the Cundill long lists are together. And then I can gradually pick them up over the course of the next few months before the shortlist is announced. Anyway, so let's get going. So first up is The Huxleys, An Intimate History of Evolution by Alison and Bashford from the University of Chicago Press. So let's go type it in. Fortunately, since it is from the University of Chicago Press, I actually checked my history catalog and it is there, so I can order it from them. Wait, okay, let's go back and check the spelling. Okay. Okay. So there we go. Assuming, of course, my mouse decides to cooperate. Okay, so this momentous biography tells the story of the Huxleys, the Victorian natural historian T.H. Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, and his grandson, the scientist, conservationist, and zoologist Julian Huxley. Between them, they communicated to the world the great modern story of the theory of evolution by natural selection. And the Huxleys' celebrated historian Alison Bashford writes seamlessly about these omnivorous intellects together, almost as if they were a single man whose long, vital life bookended the colossal shifts in world history from the age of sail to the space age, and from colonial wars to world wars to the Cold War. The Huxleys' specialty was evolution in all its forms, at the grandest level of species, deep time, the earth, and at the most personal and intimate. They illuminated the problems and wonders of the modern world, and they fundamentally shaped how we see ourselves as individuals and as a species. But perhaps their greatest subject was themselves. Bashford's engaging, brilliantly ambitious book interweaves the Huxleys' momentous public achievements with their private triumphs and tragedies. The result is the history of a family, but also a history of humanity grappling with its place in nature. This book shows how much we owe, for better or worse, to the unceasing curiosity, self-absorption, and enthusiasm of a small, strange group of men and women. That definitely sounds very interesting. So I'm going to go add it. Assuming my computer cooperates, which it does not want to. Okay, it has been added. Okay. Let's move you back up to the next book. The next book is Red Memory, Living, Remembering, and Forgetting China's Cultural Revolution by Tania Branigan from Faber and Faber. There we go. Ooh, that one is not that expensive. Awesome. So go ahead and add it to the wish list. Okay, now let's start reading the intro. Okay. It is impossible to understand China today without understanding the Cultural Revolution, Tania Branigan writes. During this decade of Maoist fanaticism between 1966 and 1976, children turned on parents, students condemned teachers, and as many as 2 million people died for their supposed political sins, while tens of millions were hounded, ostracized, and imprisoned. Yet in China, this brutal and turbulent period exists, for the most part as an absence. Official suppression and personal trauma have conspired in national amnesia. Red Memory uncovers 40 years of silence through the stories of individuals who lived through the madness, deftly exploring how this era defined a generation and continues to impact China today. Branigan asks, what happened to a society when you can no longer trust those closest to you? What happens to the present when the past is buried, exploited, or redrawn? And how do you live with yourself when the worst is over? Oh, that sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think this is going to be one of the first ones I pick up. Definitely, that is. Just wow. Okay, the next one is Declassification, or the Declassification Engine, What History Reveals About America's Top Secrets by Matthew Connelly, Pantheon Books. Okay, let's, excuse me. Really? Okay. I probably really shouldn't be doing this off of my tablet instead of my computer, because that does not nearly give me as much issues. But then again, my tablet does have a tendency to freeze up. Okay, so before World War II, transparent government was a proud tradition in the United States. In all but the most serious of circumstances, classification, covert operations, and spying were considered deeply un-American. But after the war, the power to decide what could be kept a secret proved too tempting to give up. Since then, we have radically departed from that open tradition, allowing intelligence agencies, black sites, and classified laboratories to grow unchecked. Officials insist that only secrecy can keep us safe, but its true costs have gone unacknowledged for too long. Using the latest techniques in data science, historian Matthew Connelly analyzes a vast trove of state secrets to unearth not only what the government really did not want us to know, but also why they don't want us to know it. Calling this research and carefully examining a series of pivotal moments in recent history, from Pearl Harbor to drone warfare, Connelly sheds light on the drivers of state secrecy, especially incompetence and criminality, and how rampant overclassification makes it impossible to protect truly vital information. What results is an astonishing study of power, of the greed it enables, of the negligent it protects, and of what we lose as citizens when our leaders cannot be held to account. A crucial examination of the self-defeating nature of secrecy and the dire state of our nation's archives. The declassification engine is a powerful reminder of the importance of preserving the past so that we may secure our future. That sounds really good. Yes, I did. Okay. Let's move up to the next one. The Perfection of Nature, Animals, Breeding, and Race in the Renaissance by Mackenzie, Cooley, University of Chicago Press. Oh, so this year the University of Chicago Press is representing, although I don't know necessarily if this one is in the catalog. The Perfection of Nature. No. Okay, let's come here. Okay, added it to the wish list. Now let's go read about it. The Renaissance is celebrated for the belief that individuals could fashion themselves to greatness. But there is a dark undercurrent to this fetid era of history. The same men and women who offered profound advancements in the European understanding of the human condition and laid the foundations of the scientific revolution were also obsessed with controlling that condition and the wider natural world. Tracing early modern artisanal practice, Mackenzie Cooley shows how the idea of race and theories of inheritance developed through animal breeding in the shadow of the Spanish Empire. While one strand of the Renaissance celebrated a liberal view of human potential, another limited it by biology, reducing man to beast and prince to stud. Race, Cooley explains, first referred to animal stock honed through breeding. To those who invented the concept, race was not inflexible, but the fragile result of reproductive work. As the Spanish Empire expanded, the concept of race moved from non-human to human animals. Cooley reveals how, as the dangerous idea of controlled reproduction was brought to life again and again, a rich, complex, and ever-shifting language of race and breeding was born. Adding nuance and historical context to discussions of race and human and animal relations, The Perfection of Nature provides a close reading of under-theorized notions of generation and its discontents in the more than human world. That sounds amazing. Ooh. Next is Queens of a Fallen World, The Lost Women of Augustine's Confessions, Kate Cooper, Basic Books. Basic Books is having a year. Okay, Queens of a Fallen World. Okay, and then we have a... What is this? Okay, now we're having a bit of an issue. Try that. I have no idea what the heck Amazon was trying to pull with that one. But anyway, I found it. So let's go to add to my wish list. And to check what the little blurb says. While many know of St. Augustine and his confessions, few are aware of how his life and thought were influenced by women. Queens of a Fallen World tells a story of betrayal, love, and ambition in the ancient world as seen through a woman's eyes. Historian Kate Cooper introduces us to four women whose hopes and plans collided in Augustine's early adulthood. His mother, Monica of Tagaste, his lover, his fiancée, and Justina, the troubled empress of ancient Rome. Drawing upon their depictions in the Confessions, Cooper skillfully reconstructs their lives against the backdrop of their 4th century society. Though they came from different walks of life, each found her own way of prevailing in a world ruled by men. A refreshingly complex and compelling portrait of Augustine, Queens of a Fallen World is the riveting story of four remarkable women who set him on course to change history. Courting India, England, Mughal India, and the Origins of Empire by Nandini Das, Bloomsbury Publishing. This is one of those that I was really looking forward to, and I have already in my list, but I'm going to bump it up. Assuming, of course, my mouse cooperates, which it does not want to do. Okay, so let's check this up. Okay. Traditional interpretations of the British Empire's emerging success and expansion have long overshadowed the deep uncertainty that marked its initial entanglement with India. In Courting India, Renaissance London, Mughal India, and the Origins of Empire, acclaimed historian Nandini Das examines the British arrival in India in the early 17th century with fresh eyes, resulting in a profound and groundbreaking account of one of the most important encounters in the history of colonialism. When Thomas Roe arrived in India in 1616 as James I's first ambassador to the Mughal Empire, the English barely had a toehold in the subcontinent. Their understanding of South Asian trade in India was sketchy at best, and to the Mughals, they were minor players on a very large stage. Roe represented a kingdom that was beset by financial woes and deeply conflicted about its identity as a unified Great Britain under the Stuart monarchy. Meanwhile, the court he entered in India was wealthy and cultured, his dominion widely considered to be one of the greatest and richest empires in the world. In this fascinating history of Roe's 4 years in India, Nandini Das offers an insider's view of Britain in the making, a country whose imperial seeds were just being sown. It is a story of palace intrigue, scandal, lotteries, and wagers that unfold as global trade begins to stretch from Russia to Virginia, from West Africa to the Spice Islands of Indonesia. A major debut that explores the art, literature, sights, and sounds of Elizabethan London and Imperial India, Courting India reveals Thomas Roe's time in the Mughal Empire to be a turning point in history and offers a rich and radical challenge to our understanding of Britain and its early empire. The Grimkes, The Legacy of Slavery in an American Family by Kerri Greenidge, Liverite. So I've heard of this one, because a number of these I have not heard of, but this one I have. So this is taking me a bit more time than I anticipated. Hey. Here we go. Would be more helpful if my computer did not want to act up at every opportunity. Although maybe that could also provide some levity. Okay. Yikes. Okay, I'm going to... This is going to be Weil, because the write-up is a bit longer than the others. So, Sarah and Angelina Grimke, the Grimke sisters, are revered figures in American history, famous for rejecting their privileged lives on a plantation in South Carolina to become firebrand activists in the North. Their anti-slavery pamphlets, among the most influential of the antebellum era, are still read today. Yet retellings of their epic story have long obscured their Black relatives. In the Grimkes, award-winning historian Kerri Greenidge presents a parallel narrative, indeed a long overdue corrective, shifting the focus from the white abolitionist sisters to the Black Grimkes and deepening our understanding of the long struggle for racial and gender equality. So that sounds fascinating. Let me go ahead and make sure that yes, okay, I did. Okay, next. So if the write-up is a bit too long, I'm going to just read the first paragraph. Next is American Midnight, The Great War, A Violent Peace and Democracy's Forgotten Crisis by Adam Hochschild, Mariner Brooks. Oh, this was already on my wish list too. I completely forgot about that. Awesome. Okay, so this is going to be one longish paragraph. So, the nation was on the brink. Mobs burned Black churches to the ground. Courts threw thousands of people into prison for opinions they voiced. In one notable case, only in private, several self-appointed vigilantes executed tens of thousands of citizens' arrests. Some 75 newspapers and magazines were banned from the mail and forced to close. When the government stepped in, it was often to fan the flames. This was America during and after the Great War, a brief but appalling era blighted by lynchings, censorship, and the sadistic, sometimes fatal, abuse of conscientious objectors in military prisons. A time whose toxic currents of racism, nativism, red baiting, and contempt for the rule of law then flowed directly through the intervening decades to poison our own. It was a tumultuous period defined by a diverse and colorful cast of characters, some of whom fueled the injustice while others fought against it. From the Sphinx-like Woodrow Wilson to the fiery anti-war advocates Kate Richards, O'Hare, and Emma Goldman, to labor champion Eugene Debs, to a little-known but ambitious bureaucrat named J. Edgar Hoover, and to an outspoken left-wing agitator who was in fact Hoover's star undercover agent. It is a time that we have mostly forgotten about until now. So that sounds interesting. Okay, next is Arid Empire, The Entangled Fates of Arizona and Arabia by Natalie Koch, Verso Books. Oh. Yep. So, The iconic deserts of the American Southwest could not have been colonized and settled without the help of desert experts from the Middle East. For example, in 1856, a caravan of 33 camels arrived in Indianola, Texas, led by a Syrian cameleer the Americans called High Jolly. This camel corps, the U.S. government hoped, could help the Army secure the new southwest swath of the country just wrested from Mexico. Though the dream of the Camel Corps, and sadly the camels, died, the idea of drawing on expertise, knowledge, and practices from the desert countries of the Middle East did not. As Natalie Koch demonstrates in this evocative narrative history, the exchange of colonial technologies between the Arabian Peninsula and the United States over the past 2 centuries, from date palm farming and desert agriculture to the utopian sci-fi dreams of Biosphere 2 and Frank Herbert's Dune, bound the 2 regions together, solidifying the colonization of the U.S. West and eventually the reach of American power into the Middle East. Koch teaches us to see deserts anew, not as mythic sites of romance or empty wastelands, but as an arid empire, a crucial point political space where imperial dreams coalesce. That sounds interesting. Dust on the Throne, The Search for Buddha in Modern India by Douglas Ober, Navayana. I've never heard of that publisher. Okay, so this one is... This one might be one that I hold off on for sheer price reasons. This one is very expensive, the most expensive one I've seen so far. So let's, but I will go ahead and add it to the wish list regardless. Okay. Received wisdom has it that Buddhism disappeared from India, the land of its birth, between the 13th and 14th centuries, long forgotten until British colonial scholars rediscovered it in the early 1800s. Its full-fledged revival, so the story goes, only occurred in 1956, when the Indian civil rights pioneer Dr. B.R. Ambedkar converted to Buddhism, along with 500,000 of his Dalit, formerly untouchable followers. This, however, is only part of the story. Dust on the Throne reframes discussions about the place of Buddhism in the subcontinent from the early 19th century onwards, uncovering the integral yet unacknowledged role that Indians played in the making of modern global Buddhism in the century prior to Ambedkar's conversion, and the numerous ways that Buddhism gave powerful shape to modern Indian history. Through an extensive examination of disparate materials held at archives and temples across South Asia, Douglas Ober explores Buddhist religious dynamics in an age of expanding colonial empires, intra-Asian connectivity, and the histories of Buddhism produced by 19th and 20th century Indian thinkers. While Buddhism in contemporary India is often disparaged as being little more than tattered manuscripts and crumbling ruins, this book opens new avenues for understanding its substantial socio-political impact and intellectual legacy. Interesting, very interesting. Although the price tag, hopefully there's a copy used if I decide to read the entire long list. Next is Femina, A New History of the Middle Ages through the Women Written Out of It by Janine Ramirez by W.H. Allen. So this is one of those that I have in the wish list, I'm pretty sure. And I think it has also been, I think it's had some, it's been remarked on BookTube. I think Britta Bowler's read it. I think a few others have read it. It was already in the wish list, so it has been moved up and is not that expensive, so I might pick it up soon. And let's go. The Middle Ages are seen as a bloodthirsty time of Vikings, saints, and kings, a patriarchal society that oppressed and excluded women. But when we dig a little deeper into the truth, we can see that the Dark Ages were anything but. Oxford and BBC historian Janine Ramirez has uncovered countless influential women's names struck out of historical records, with the word Femina annotated beside them, as gatekeepers of the past ordered books to be burned, artworks to be destroyed, and new versions of myths, legends, and historical documents to be produced. Our view of history has been manipulated. Only now, through a careful examination of the artifacts, writings, and possessions they left behind, are the influential and multifaceted lives of women emerging. Femina goes beyond the official records to uncover the true impact of women such as Jadwiga, the only female king in Europe, Marjorie Kemp. I have nightmares about her from my English lit class, who exploited her image and story to ensure her notoriety. Loftus princes, whose existence gives us clues about the beginnings of Christianity in England. So, sounds very interesting. Marjorie Kemp aside. I had to read her, whatever book it is, it just was not a fan of. But again, I'm not the biggest fan of medieval literature. But really looking forward to the book though, regardless of Marjorie Kemp. Charged, A History of Batteries and Lessons for a Clean Energy Future by James Morton Turner, University of Washington Press. So this one will likely be very expensive as well, because university presses do tend to be expensive. However, do not type in Femina and then charged on Amazon. Okay. Oh no, it's 22, so it's not that bad. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So let's add you to the wish list. Okay. To achieve fossil fuel independence, few technologies are more important than batteries. Used for powering zero-emission vehicles, storing electricity from solar panels and wind turbines, and revitalizing the electric grid, batteries are essential to scaling up the renewable energy resources that help address global warming. But given the unique environmental impact of batteries, including mining, disposal, and more, does a clean energy transition risk trading one set of problems for another? In Charge, James Morton Turner unpacks the history of batteries to explore why solving the battery problem is critical to a clean energy transition. As climate activists focus on what a clean energy future will create, sustainability, resiliency, and climate justice, the history of batteries offers a sharp reminder of what building that future will consume: lithium, graphite, nickel, and other specialized materials. With new insight on the consequences for people and communities on the front lines, Turner draws on the past for crucial lessons that will help us build a just and clean energy future from the ground up. Oh, that sounds really cool. Okay, next is The Madman in the Whitehouse, Sigmund Freud, Ambassador Bullitt, and the Lost Psychobiography of Woodrow Wilson. Patrick Weil, Harvard University Press. I guess we may not be able to escape Woodrow Wilson this year. Oh, not what I wanted to do. Okay. So we're almost done. There's this one and one more. And okay, let's see how much of this I can knock off before it actually shows me what I want. I don't think that's Woodrow Wilson. Oh, good lord, caramba. Okay, maybe if we just go with the author's name, that will help. So if you're looking up Madman in the Whitehouse, type in Patrick Weil, which is Weil, and it's $29. So not bad. Okay, into research. Oh, it was already in research too. I was thinking there were a number, like all but two of the books on the long list. I had never heard of, but there are quite a few that I actually have in the wish list. Ironically, two of them are in some way, shape, or form about Woodrow Wilson. Okay, let's go. When the fate of millions rests on the decisions of a mentally compromised leader, what can one person do, disillusioned by President Woodrow Wilson's destructive and irrational handling of the 1919 Treaty of Versailles? A U.S. diplomat named William C. Bullitt asked this very question. With the help of his friend Sigmund Freud, Bullitt set out to write a psychological analysis of the president. He gathered material from personal archives and interviewed members of Wilson's inner circle. In The Madman in the Whitehouse, Patrick Weil resurrects his forgotten portrait of a troubled president. After 2 years of collaboration, Bullitt and Freud signed off on a manuscript in April 1932. But the book was not published until 1966, nearly 30 years after Freud's death and only months before Bullitt's. The published edition was heavily redacted, and by the time it was released, the mystique of psychoanalysis had waned in popular culture and Wilson's legacy was unassailable. The psychological study was panned by critics, and Freud's descendants denied his involvement in the project. Interesting. Very interesting. So let's go on to the last one. Against the World. Anti-Globalism and Mass Politics Between the World Wars by Zahra, W. Norton and Company. This one was already in my wish list too. Well, that is very pleasant to see. Okay. So, what is Against the World about? Before the First World War, enthusiasm for a borderless world reached its height. International travel, migration, trade, and progressive projects on matters ranging from women's rights to world peace reached a crescendo. Yet in the same breath, an undercurrent of reaction was growing, one that would surge ahead with the outbreak of war and its aftermath. And Against the World, a sweeping and ambitious work of history, acclaimed scholar Zahra examines how nationalism rather than internationalism came to ensnare world politics in the early 20th century. The air went out of the globalist balloon with the First World War as quotas were put on immigration and tariffs on trade, not only in the United States but across Europe, where war and disease led to mass societal upheaval. The Spanish flu heightened anxieties about porous national borders. The global impact of the 1929 economic crash and the Great Depression amplified a quest for food security in Europe and economic autonomy worldwide. Demands for relief from the instability and inequality linked to globalization to forge democracies and dictatorships alike, from Gandhi's India to America's New Deal and Hitler's Third Reich. Immigration restrictions, racially constituted notions of citizenship, anti-Semitism, and violent outbursts of hatred of the other became the norm, coming to genocidal fruition in the Second World War. Oh, that sounds interesting. Very interesting. Okay, cool. Awesome. So when I first looked at the long list, I don't know. I guess on a first look, I wasn't too excited. There were only 2 books that I recall actually remembering and wanting. There really wasn't much in the areas of history that I'm especially interested in, which are the ancient world and Egypt. But reading the descriptions of these books, I am now super excited for a lot of them, and I cannot wait to pick them up and read them. So I don't know exactly how long it's going to take me to pick these books up, but I will be working on that as soon as I can. So anyway, BookTube, this video has gone on super long. I will report back intermittently as I pick up and read the long list and the short list and the finalists and so on and so forth. So anyway, BookTube, I need to go ahead and sign off for now because this video has gone on quite long. And I will leave links to both the Cundill Prize website and the much neglected Cundill YouTube channel, as well as a list of the books in the long list. Although I guess you could just check out the Cundill Prize's website for the long list. Anyway, BookTube. So until I see you next week, thank you. Have a great afternoon and weekend, and stay safe.